Welcome, everyone. You are in the right place if you came here today to learn about dietary fat. I see a couple of names from before and some new names. So this is our second HEAL workshop in a series, four-part series that we're doing for the community event. So before we get started, I'm just going to introduce myself so you know who you're engaging with today, and then we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Rochelle Price. I'm the Senior Director of the Health Initiatives Department at the YMCA Association Office. So we oversee the Bay Area. And I am bringing this HEAL workshop to you in partnership with our Peninsula YMCA family branch. I hear somebody talking, which is good because I'll ask for talking later. But what we're going to go over today is understanding the essentials in the macronutrients around fat specifically. There are, of course, other macronutrients, but fat's the one we're focusing on. Before we hop in, a couple of things I'd like to share with you is that this is really an informative conversation. So I'll be sharing information on the topic. I'd like them to be interactive, so I'll ask you to share your thoughts and opinions on the topic as well. And there'll be some space for us, hopefully, to connect with each other during the next 40 minutes or so. And then just know that I'm not a licensed dietitian or medical provider, so I'm not going to be giving you prescriptions, if you will, about what you should or should not do. Rather, this is just information to help you feel more informed and reignite some of your knowledge around fats and what are the different types of fats. So with that said, we are going to do just a quick, I know most of you probably know your Zoom panel. Because I'd like it to be interactive, I just want to make sure you all know how to unmute yourself. If you'd like to share verbally, that would be fantastic. And also there at the bottom, there's a reaction button that has a little happy face. I'm going to ask that at times you're going to share reactions like a thumbs up or raising your hand if you have a question so I can see you that way. You also obviously can put messages in chat, and that will be an excellent way for you to engage in the meeting as well. So with that, I'm going to actually ask my first question, and that is, what do you hope to learn about dietary fats today? So you can put that in chat, you can unmute yourself and say a few thoughts, whatever you're comfortable with. What are you hoping to get out of this conversation today? And if it's as simple as you just want to learn more, that's fine too. To eat better, thank you. Yeah, for you and your family. So extending it to folks beyond yourself, that is a very good thing to get out of it. How healthy are dietary fats, and really, what is it? That's you're in the right place. That's exactly what we're going to talk about. How to make better choices. Fantastic. All very good. How to live longer. What fats are associated with different foods? Yes, we will explore that. So you were definitely in the right place. Thank you so much for sharing some thoughts about what you like to get out of it. Cholesterol issues. We will touch on that as well as it relates to dietary fats. Wonderful. Anything else that anyone wants to share? These are all very good. I love the how to live longer. We might not get into that completely in this session, but we can talk about how fats and knowing the different types of fats might support you in living longer. Okay. So my goals and objectives for you are exactly kind of what you highlighted are your goals for yourself. We're going to talk about what are the benefits of dietary fats, because there are some. What are the different types of dietary fats, and what are the recommendations for total fat consumption? And like I said, you can expect group discussion and an activity at the end. So I would suggest you grab a pen and paper so you have that ready for the activity that we'll be doing a little bit later. And then I will be sharing a link for a survey for your feedback in the end. And I'll explain that survey when we get to that portion of it. All right, so the benefits of dietary fat. So the key thing here is fat has a bad reputation, but there are actually some essential benefits and functions of having fat in your diet. So these are just a few that I'd like to call your attention to. It's optimal for body function. It helps with the absorption of your essential vitamins, minerals, and nutrients. It helps produce essential hormones for normal body function. It protects your vital organs. So your heart and your kidneys are great examples of that. Provides physical energy in the form of calories. Supports necessary cell growth and helps keep the body warm. Before I move on, are there any that you know about that I haven't mentioned that are benefits of dietary fat? You can throw it in chat if you know of anything I haven't mentioned. All right. I like that it keeps the body warm. I do notice that when it gets cold. So I like that factor of body fat myself. Okay, so the key here is not all fats are created equal. And so fat is actually broken down to, and this might look familiar as we're talking about it, but it's broken down to 4 major types of dietary fat. We have our monounsaturated fat, polyunsaturated fat, saturated fat, and trans fat. Some food facts specifically around fat, that regardless of the type of fat, all fat provides 9 calories per gram. And to put that in perspective, carbohydrates and proteins, which are our other macronutrients, provide 4 calories per gram. Why is that important? One, it's a denser nutrient is what that's letting you know. So the more fat you eat, the more fat you can put on. But regardless of the type of macronutrient, eating too many calories is going to lead to weight gain. So something to keep in mind regardless. The experts recommend that 20 to 35% of your total calories come from dietary fat. So that's roughly about 45 to 70, I like to say 45, but 44 to 74 grams per day for a 2,000 a day calorie diet. So before we move on, going to throw out a question to you. What of your favorite foods do you believe are high in fat? You can put it in text or unmute yourself. Favorite foods you think are high in fat? Ice cream, French fries, butter, mayo, nuts, avocados. Yep, those are all excellent examples. And of those examples, sweets, yep, sweets. How do you know that these are high in fat? What's the giveaway that these are high in fat foods? Yep, savory foods are generally. So what makes you think those are high in fat? What's the giveaway? Taste oily or rich? Yeah. Some people like to say they're the yummiest. Yep, great tasting. They have lots of flavor. Yeah. So if you had to guess, yeah, delicious. So if you had to guess on what was shared in chat, so for those who aren't looking at the chat, we saw ice cream, French fries, butter, mayo, nuts, and avocado. So they're going to be in different categories. If you had to guess, what category do you think French fries are in based on the 4 types of fat? Saturated, that is a very good guess. And what about nuts or avocados? Do you think nuts and avocados are also saturated, or do you think they might be in a different category?
Maybe mono.
Yeah, maybe mono. Also, I'm seeing a different one. Somebody's saying poly or mono. So this is just to get a feel for what you guys already know, and a lot of you guys are spot on. So what we're going to do is explore each specific category and what actually falls in that. So this is to answer what are the different foods and the different categories. So we're going to start with unsaturated fats. So unsaturated fats are the monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats. As I said before, they still provide 9 calories per gram. They're often what you'll find in a liquid form at room temperature, and then it solidifies if it's chilled. And it's known to help lower what we call the lousy LDL cholesterol. And it raises your happy HDL cholesterol. And we'll talk about cholesterol a little bit in a moment. The American Heart Association does recommend that the majority of your fat consumption comes from foods in this category, so in the unsaturated fats category. And a key differentiation between monounsaturated and polyunsaturated is that monounsaturated typically is derived from plant-based resources. So you'd find that in things like olives and olive oils, peanut, canola oils. What was mentioned there, we've got the nuts. So avocado, almond, hazelnuts would fit in that category. Pecan, pumpkin, sesame seeds, that would also fall in monounsaturated types of fats. Then we have our polyunsaturated, and this is a combo of both plant-based as well as seafood sources. So it would be things like sunflower or safflower oils, corn, soy, flax, and of course we know salmon, mackerel, herring, albacore, and tuna are all fish-based, but also rich in omega-3s and omega-6s. And fun facts about that, just as a reminder, omega-3s and 6 are vital to our function, and they provide essential fatty acids. But that's not something that's naturally occurring. So we do need to rely on food as the source of those fatty acids. But they support cell growth as well as brain function. So they are critical that we have that in our diet to have healthy brain health as well as eating healthy. So any questions? Actually, one other fun fact, because I skipped over omega-6. Omega-6 actually helps control blood sugar, which is good to know. Omega-6 also helps lower blood pressure. So many additional health benefits just from eating polyunsaturated sources. The next category we're going to talk about is the saturated fats, and a lot of you are spot on with your examples of the yummies. So still provides 9 calories per gram. This is opposite. So whereas the unsaturated fats can lower your lousy or bad cholesterol, saturated fats can raise your bad cholesterol, and it can lower your healthy, happy cholesterol. The recommendation is that you eat these foods in moderation, though some of these have other benefits. So some examples: cheese, milk, cream, butter, and eggs. Great sources of protein, so you'll still need those in your diet. But beef and steak, things like that, pork, lamb, falls in the category of saturated fats. Coconut oils and palm kernel oils also fit in this category. So the American Heart Association recommends that you eat roughly 10% of your total fat calories in this category on a daily basis. And then the final category is trans fats. Trans fats definitely raise your what we call your lousy cholesterol and lowers your healthy, happy HDL cholesterol. And it's a hidden one. So as you can see from the nutrition facts of this particular example, we have an example of 4 cookies. And it'll say on the label that you have 7 total grams of fat, and that half of that almost is saturated fat. So we already know they're fatty based on that description. But it says that there's 0 trans fats. So that's always a little misleading. You can think, oh, great, I don't have any trans fats in this particular item. But what is in the list is the ingredient list. And anything that's the closer an ingredient is mentioned to the top of the ingredient list, the higher quantity of that item is in the food. And it shows there that there's hydrogenated vegetable oil. So anything that appears as hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated on the food label is actually a trans fat. And that is a process that really helps create stability to a food source and increase shelf life of a food. So that's often why you'll find it in processed foods and boxed foods at the grocery store. You'll also find it used in restaurant foods, right? So we talked about fried foods. It does taste yummy, but you'll see in fried foods, highly processed foods, grain-based desserts, and like I said, fast food restaurants often use it to extend the shelf life, as well as some restaurants. The recommendation is that you try not to have any of it in your diet if at all possible, but that it should be limited as much as you can possibly limit this particular type of fat. So with that said, we're going to kind of just recap because I went through that a little bit quick, but 20 to 30% of daily calories, which is roughly 44 to 74 grams, should come from fats. The breakdown should be roughly 15 to 20% should be your monounsaturated, so that's those plant-based sources. 5 to 10 should be the polyunsaturated, so the combination of the seafood and plant-based sources. Less than 10% should ideally be from saturated fats, and ideally 0% from trans fats. Now, if you have, and this is actually recommendations, by the way, from the American Heart Association, but if you have high cholesterol, it is also recommended that you have less than 300 milligrams per day. And so what is cholesterol? I'm going to actually ask you all about that before we move on. What do you think cholesterol is, besides the fact that we know there's healthy and unhealthy types of cholesterol? What are some of the things that you know about cholesterol? And you can pop it in chat or unmute yourself. And why do we care? It's kind of a double whammy there. Bad for you. Heart attack. Clogs your arteries, absolutely. Yeah, so interestingly enough, not all cholesterol is bad for you, right? So that's why we have that happy HDL. And I think that's why we've labeled that, right? You know, we know there's LDL, and if you think of LDL as lousy DL, so the bad types of cholesterol, and then HDL is the happy, good types of cholesterol, you'll find that it's kind of a tricky one, right? So saturated fats we saw in the category butter, milk, meats, shellfish, right? So like I said, they can fall in the healthy category, but they're high in fat. So you still want to moderate how much of it you have, but the healthy cholesterol essentially acts as a way to remove the bad cholesterol out of your body. And essentially what cholesterol is like a waxy substance that's found in your body, and you'll see it in animal byproducts as well. So as mentioned here by Julie, it can clog your arteries if you get a buildup of the lousy type. And the lousy type is often found in what we've already talked about: fast foods, processed meats, really yummy desserts that we love, like ice cream and cookies, and fried foods, right? So we all kind of have a good sense of where they fall. There's a question here, so I want to address it. How often do you recommend to check cholesterol levels? Well, that's an excellent question. I think it's a two-part answer. So it'll be very individually based, and it'll be based on if you already know you have high cholesterol or if you have other heart health issues, right? Cholesterol is definitely related to heart health. And so at a minimum, I would say once a year, but when I come from the lens of diabetes prevention, which is something I lead the program of, there are other tests you can do that all come at once through your blood test, right? So you could do a lipid panel every 3 months and get an A1C. And we recommend people with pre-diabetes to do that every 3 months because it represents the past 3 months of your eating behavior. So that would also apply to your lipid panel. So if you're somebody who knows you have high cholesterol and you're actively trying to make changes to your cholesterol level, you might want to do it as frequently as quarterly. So it just depends on where you are currently with your health levels. And if you haven't had a test in a long time, regardless of what we're talking about right now, I would encourage everybody to get a current blood panel and lipid panel. Excellent question there in chat. Okay. And there'll be room for more questions, but I want to give you some time to kind of work with what we just shared. So we're going to do an activity. So this is where your pen and paper will come in handy. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes, so you'll have time to do this. What the activity is that you're going to write down everything you had to eat or drink in the last 24 hours. And you want to be as specific and detailed as possible. And if you want to be even more specific, you can put the time and serving down as well. And the reason why that's useful is that can inform you about when you're taking in and how much you're taking in, right? Tracking is actually really useful when you're trying to make healthy changes around your dietary habits. You're going to then, after you write down this list, I want you to go back to what you wrote down, and you're going to label each food by the following category. So if it's something that you think is a monounsaturated, you'll put that next to it. Polyunsaturated, saturated, trans, or if it has no fat. And then when you're all done, if you gave me some side of verbal or a chat or a little virtual thumbs up so I know you're ready, then we'll come back as a larger group and share some examples. So I'm going to be quiet for the next 10 minutes and give you time to reflect on your past 24 hours. And if you have questions, let me know in chat. So I saw a couple of thumbs up. I just want to do a check-in and make sure we don't give you more time than you need. But if you need more time, just let me know in chat. Or if you're ready, if you can let me know in chat. So I see a couple of thumbs for more time. Great. Okay, hopefully that was enough time to at least get a few things written down. It's okay if you didn't get every single detail down, but we have a basis to start with. So what I'd like to do, if I could get some brave volunteers to either, it would work best if you unmute yourself, but you can also write in chat. But I'd love to hear from you. One, what were your thoughts or feelings that came up around the exercise? And what changes to your eating plan are you considering now that you've done this, if any? Um, and we can also break them up as a group. So thoughts in chat or unmute yourself. What thoughts or feelings came up by doing this exercise?
Well, I can start. It was hard for me to remember what I ate and when, and especially snacks. I actually don't want to remember it, especially when we're talking about dietary issue.
Yeah.
And what changes do you want to do? Of course, we always want to cut down the fat and also the snacks, but it's a little difficult, especially when I'm stressed.
Yeah. Thank you. So a couple of things, and I'm sure you're not alone in that. Hard to remember what you ate in the past 24 hours, maybe feeling like, oh gosh, I don't even want to track that because I already know that it probably doesn't have some healthy fats in it. And I eat certain things when I'm stressed, right? Which is a whole nother part around healthy eating practices, right? We can maybe know what we want to do and we know what's the healthy thing, and then we have our emotional response, right? Sometimes we still grab that ice cream, even if we know ice cream has a lot of trans fats, right? Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. I'm seeing a share in chat that says I usually track my diets in an app. That's a great way to track. Um, some of the benefits in tracking through apps is that it'll let you know what the macros are, so you don't have to try and even figure it out. If you have an app that allows you to read labels, like MyFitnessPal, for example, it'll break down all the macronutrients for you. I'm wondering, Mia, if you had any surprises or things that you're considering now by reflecting on your past 24 hours. You can put it in chat. I think you're all able to unmute yourselves too. Trust me, the more you share, it helps the rest of the group. So I also know some groups are shyer than others, but any other thoughts? Yeah, making the decision to track in general is hard, for sure. Thank you, Mia. Yeah, there's a lot of information that comes from tracking, and going back to what Tina shared, sometimes we don't want to, right? Once you see how much fat is in one of your favorite foods, you might have to reevaluate that favorite food, right? So it kind of depends on what your goals are. Part of it is just starting somewhere, right? So anybody see something from doing the activity that you think, oh, I'd like to maybe consider changing that in my eating in the future?
I think we need to look at healthier snacks. For instance, Asian countries tend to, and you see these on the movies too, they tend to snack on fruit. They think an orange is delightful and they think that's a great snack. But Americans will reach for the potato chips. You know, that's just the way I see it. And then when I look what I write down, you see a bulk of what you're eating in snacks is just the worst things for you. You know, chips and cookies and ice cream. I didn't eat them all at once, but I mean,
but sometimes we want to eat them all at once. But that is a great example, right? What do we even grab? You know, and there's pros to everything. I think we know, we've all heard eating an apple a day keeps the doctor away. So we're told to maybe reach for the fruit and yeah, the easy things in the American diet for snacks are all the packaged foods that we talked about that have all those hidden fats, right? The trans fats and saturated fats. Yeah, and a good point too is, I mean, and this is where if we had much more than an hour, we could talk about all the macronutrients. But yes, too much fruit is not good for you either. Then we get into that too much sugar converts to carbs and then can be stored as fat, right? So there's a lot of other science around food that we have to pay attention to. And obviously, I like to say in the diabetes prevention program that too much of anything is not a good thing. So it's about a balance, right? Getting a balance of your fats, getting a balance of your carbs, and a balance of the protein that's right for each individual based on your relationship with your doctor or a dietitian. So any diet that's really high in carbs is imbalanced. Any diet that's super high in fat, imbalanced. So with this, it's like you still need fat in your diet. It's where can we get the healthier sources to make up that composition? And it takes time, right? We build a lifetime of habits that don't break overnight. So even if it just is, maybe you're going to start tracking just to see what's happening with your choices. Maybe that's the start you choose to make today, right? It's going to look different for each of us, but yeah, too much sweet things definitely can be detrimental. Any other thoughts from anyone before we move on? Okay. So I love this topic. I love talking macronutrients too. And we do have other heal workshops around carbs and other things that we can always talk about in the future. I will have some space for questions next, but just wanted to recap that today we focused on the benefits of dietary fat, the different types, recommendations for total fat consumption. I will be sending a brief survey link, and I'll also share in chat now to all of you. as well as a workshop participant guide. If you are all interested, I can have Tina email that out to you. And that just has a summary with, the graphs and pretty pictures if you're somebody who's visual and would like to reflect on the material. So I can send that out to you as well. The survey, and it's optional, but I strongly encourage it for 2 reasons. This survey asks for your name and zip code. We're not going to follow up with you or call you. We're just trying to figure out how big our reach is. So we are targeting reaching out as many people in the San Mateo area. And we also want to make sure we're providing content that is valuable and educational, and you have something that you can take away with you from it. So your feedback is really useful to us as an organization, as well as the Y Peninsula Family Y. We want to know that we're reaching more people. That's really what this is about. So with that said, it looks like we still have some about 5-ish minutes or so. I would love to open it up to questions that you might have about this topic, or just general, if there are any questions around. We had that mentioned earlier. How can I make healthier choices all around? So any questions? I'm staring at the chat like a shark because that's all I can really see, but you can also unmute yourself.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. Very informative. If you can send us a slide and also the survey link, that would be great. I'll send it to the people that registered. Okay.
Perfect. And actually, what I'm going to send is what we call our handout companion guide, which
Great.
also has additional resources in the body of it that you can explore for more research on your own. So you can do a little more digging. So I'm happy to send that to you.
Great. Thank you so much.
I see a hidden message. And my answer to that question is you probably will want to Google it. So I have a question that asks, is flounder a good source of fat? And I'm inclined to say yes, but this is where I'm not a dietitian. So there's lots of easy ways for you to find out what category flounder falls into. Google's a great friend for that. You can get a lot of information by Googling how much fat is in XYZ. So how much fat is in a serving of servings, by the way, typically of fish for me is 4 ounces. So that would be a good reference point to find out how much fat is in a serving of flounder. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted that I was able to be here with you for this short amount of time. Hope to hear some feedback from you, and thank you so much for hosting, Tina.
Thank you, Rachel. Always. See you next time. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care. Bye, everyone.